Hi, and welcome to another episode of Celebrating Small Family Businesses. Today we are excited to celebrate Kiid Coffee, which is created by David and Ethan Sanborn, father and son. And you might notice from the picture that Ethan is a little younger than our usual guest. Hi, Ethan. Hi, David.
Hi.
So, Ethan, I understand that the Kiid Coffee business is your idea.
Yeah.
What
Yeah,
made
because
you What made you want to create a business called Kiid Coffee and make coffee for kids?
Well, I kind of wanted to make some money, and I kind of wanted to have a business. It was kind of cool.
Nice. And why coffee?
Well,
You like coffee?
yeah. But when I like coffee, and I like coffee, it just tastes really good. And
I don't think he sees a difference of coffee for adults or coffee for himself, but so the fact that there wasn't a coffee for him was the interesting
Yeah.
point. He
Yeah.
doesn't see it as there's a reason it shouldn't be there.
Okay. Oh well. So yeah,
Smart.
most adults don't want to give their kids coffee because of the caffeine in the coffee that makes you, kind of wakes you up and can give you the jitters and yeah, make you crazy. Uh, and
And then,
and
and then with kid coffee, right? We know, of course, there's a reason that it's coffee for kids.
yeah. So you set out to make a healthy version for kids?
yeah, yeah.
And what was
Yeah.
that like? What did you have to do to figure that out?
Well, I didn't like. That's a really hard question. Like,
Oh,
Ethan's
sorry.
mostly responsible on the taste testing side. So
There you go.
Ah,
my
okay.
background, yes. My background with quite a bit more food formulation, and then Ethan's desire and love of the coffee taste kind of came together to really make a product. Ethan being the audience, right? So he was the you could say the number one taste tester. How many times do you think you tasted a version of Kid Coffee?
like 200 times.
Wow. Okay, so you
So
were the primary representative for kids everywhere who like coffee.
Yeah.
yeah, you could say he hired Dad to make him a good beverage, and then over time we found the right version that was right tasty to Ethan, but not only to Ethan, to the kids around the neighborhood that also then found out about Kid Coffee. So,
Okay, so you brought some other people in to do taste testing as well. Of course. Wonderful.
Yep.
Ethan, what's it like working with your parents, especially with your dad?
Well, it's fun to work with my mom and dad and my brother, kind of. but,
how
yeah,
old's your brother?
3. Wait,
Yeah.
yeah, about to turn 4.
Okay, so yeah, he's going to be another taste tester, I guess.
Indeed, he's
into
a taste
everything.
tester. He's a little bit of a handful, we'll say, at times. So
I would imagine so. Wonderful. Well, so Ethan, who's the boss?
Me.
All right. All right. That's your picture on the
gainfully
website.
employed. Yeah.
I'm the boss too.
Sorry, David. What were you saying?
No, I said I'm gainfully employed by my 8-year-old son.
That's a pretty unusual statement right there.
That's
Well, you know,
amazing.
I think
So, David, how's your boss?
Yeah. I think it's a happy place to be to know that we're working for our kids, for their future, right? Anyway, so no qualms about that.
And yeah, and learning, such valuable business skills and just setting up such a bright future. It's really exciting to hear your story. I actually haven't been able to taste any Kiid Coffee yet, but I am looking forward to it because I love the idea of the cocoa, is it cocoa or cacao? How do you?
Oh, that's a heavily debated word, I would say. So, cacao being the unprocessed, unroasted version of coca, which is usually comes as alkalized cocoa, so like a chemically treated cocoa is what you get in most chocolate products for the most part. No, we do use sort of unrefined version, which many people call cacao. I honestly, they're the same thing. It's the stage of processing basically is the difference. So
okay.
Did
But
not know
so in the adult coffee world, they've got mocha drinks, mocha lattes, and mocha this. So it sounds like it might be similar to that. But I'm looking forward to tasting.
Yeah. So I think Ethan has to run off. So we can keep. Thank you for taking the time.
Yes, Ethan, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to telling more people about your product so that more kids can enjoy it.
We're going to buy some for our grandson, so
Absolutely.
as soon as we can find it. Cool.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah, he's got his after school. He has his activities to complete, including a little bit of reading and writing practice. So
school's already started.
school started on Monday. So
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah, our guys, I think, start on Wednesday or Thursday. They were debating that between their two.
yeah, and I think the West Coast doesn't go back for another week potentially.
Yeah, they usually are after Labor Day in a lot of places.
Yeah, it's very interesting as well. Ethan, of course, learning how to read, truly learning how to read at the same time of obviously doing many things with business. And it's just interesting observation, I guess, for me is the amount of things that kids can learn and do it very quickly if you expose them to it, right? If they, you kind of say, oh, business, all that stuff that you need later in life, you could potentially graduate from college and never have taken a single course on, business, accounting, product development, marketing, all these different things that basically are people's jobs, right? After they get out of, all of that education. So, Ethan really tackling these subjects very early. So.
That is wonderful.
And good for you for listening to him and figuring out his needs, because not a lot of parents can do that. So kudos to you and your wife.
Oh, well, thank you. When I look at parenting and kind of generation, like how it's done differently, right? One generation to the next, and truly generations are defined by these interesting, right? Baby boomers by being like post-war, right? And these kind of things that you grew up with, including, funny enough, cell phones and sort of the internet age being a defining point, but also major things like health and wellness, and kind of like thinking more about these things. And then the final entrepreneurship, right? What 30 years ago, not everybody thought they could sit at home all day and be their own boss, right? And now you can. So as a parent, you look at it, you say, wow, I have to teach my kids that it's not just go to school every day and then get a job. It possibly looks very different than that, especially for Ethan 15 years from now, or whatever it might be, 15 years from now. So,
Right.
We have to adapt to those changes. And, and yeah, we're doing our best though. We use a lot of Google research to ask parenting questions.
That's I wish we'd have had that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we stumbled through a lot.
It was late. He came along late.
Yeah.
I think the internet became kind of popularized in the late 80s, like 86 is what the number I've got stuck in my head. So when you say 30 years ago, I mean, that's really tight. And it just literally didn't exist before then.
Yeah. Well, I was born in 1985, and then I had a cell phone in high school, beginning of high school, which was, still dial buttons, no touch screens or anything like that. But that truly is a parameter for sort of setting the millennial generation. Yeah. Which I would be an older version of a millennial now. They've kind of shifted those brackets, I guess. But those small differences, right? Also, well, actually a huge difference, right? Having access to the internet in my house as a kid, I think is a big part of like what defines that group. So
yes,
I remember we got our first Mac. It was one of those little ones, and we're all four of us standing around there trying to play a game.
Yeah. Yeah, I was actually pretty lucky. My parents had some like PC, like an IBM, something from a work that was thousands and thousands of dollars. and my dad liked to play with it, and floppy disks and all these things, trying to get games to work. So I had Math Blaster, which was, I remember being on a green screen, doing math problems, and then the internet being connecting to the modem, and having that in my house in the early 90s. So it was pretty early for the average, but it was based on my parents, basically. Right? But, sorry,
no, you're cutting edge. We've got a friend of our son's, same thing. His dad always wanted to have the latest stuff, and and so he always had his dad's hand-me-downs, which was like every 2 years he had a new computer, and he's been doing technical support for people and building computers for them since junior high school. So and
he worked for us for years.
He's early 40s right now. So he was like a great asset to have.
Right. Yeah. Because he knew stuff we didn't know.
You also mentioned, I want to go back to the health and wellness, because you mentioned health and wellness, and I think that your interest in health and wellness and something to do with Ethan played a big part in the development of Kiid Coffee, didn't it?
That's right. I mean, Kiid Coffee is it started as a lot of things coming together at once, which Ethan being interested in entrepreneurship, really like at the age of 6, he kind of started asking, he saw kids having a lemonade stand, and he said, hey, can we do a lemonade stand? I said, well, let's talk about the kind of economics of an lemonade stand. And you're 6, so I can't let you sit there outside, on the curb at age 6. So we started to talk through that, and then about product, right? Developing products, and then things like marketing and how do we tell people about your lemonade stand? And it's funny when you tell that to a 6-year-old, they can come up with a lot of ideas. And I thought that was one of the most he said, why don't we just put it right in front of school in the morning where all the cars are driving by? So, because I told him, in our neighborhood, not enough cars drive by potentially. So these things that, it was very interesting, his interest. But then along the way, us being parents and being more health focused, I guess I'd say, in the first place. So we try to buy the best foods and, more organic things, these different things. And then come to find out he breaks his first leg, a spiral fracture, jumped in the air and spun around, and it, broke. It's as simple as that for little kids, apparently. And then a year later, 13 months later, doing the exact same thing, but to the other leg. And, that part of the sort of journey for Kiid Coffee was maybe the most important, because it was a stopping point where we say, wait, I thought we bought all these good foods. We bought, we have multivitamins. And the last point to this was in the doctor's appointment right after that, orthopedist said, hey, well, my wife being very concerned, there's got to be something wrong, 2 broken legs. And he's like, they're boys, that happens. But you should definitely look and see, check his vitamin D, and he probably needs more of it, because most kids do. And that statement was, I kind of stopped and I thought, wait, we do a multivitamins, and he still kind of disregarded that because the dosage was a lot higher than what you would see in a kid's multivitamin. And so let's just say the one thing led to another. I'm a person that doesn't take just offhand advice, even if it's from a doctor. I'm going to do the research, right? I'm going to start looking into these things. And I have an engineering degree. I'm a very analytical person. And so one thing led to another, and it was whoa, Ethan's not getting not only enough vitamin D, he's not getting enough calcium in all the foods that we give. Getting into the research and realizing calcium, vitamin D, iron is actually a critical one. That worldwide, iron is the #1 nutrient deficiency for kids. Do you find iron in most kids' multivitamins? 0, right? It's not in there anymore. And so there's a lot they kind of went into that, and we sort of stepped back and said, me personally, as having experience in food, saying, I can fix this. This is not very difficult. Creating, our own vitamin formulation, but then Ethan's still liking the taste of coffee, and blending those 2 things together, it became Ethan's special coffee, yes, with water processed decaf, which means there's no chemicals used to decaffeinate it, and you can remove 99.9% of the caffeine. So you actually are removing caffeine. So chocolate milk can have more caffeine than Kiid Coffee, and that's because coca itself has caffeine. But these are kind of really funny things that the coffee flavor, it's not, I would say in the US, people might assume that kids don't like that flavor. But when you mix it into milk and you make a Kiid Coffee latte, as we call it, it creates effectively a flavor like a chocolate milk, right? Or we have a caramel, and we have our chocolate latte, so tastes more like a traditional chocolate milk. But yeah, I mean, it's truly an evolution, a lot of things that came together to develop what ended up being the final product and company. So
That's fascinating. Wow. Are you thinking about adding additional somehow related products, other nutritional products?
yeah. I mean, the big vision for Kiid Coffee really, after going through this whole process and my background in creating brands and products in the past, kind of like marrying the two things of passion and what you're good at, what you have experience in. And it's interesting for me to have really sort of aligned now. I really love food, number one. I just like food. But when you look at kids' nutrition, then seeing so many issues in the market, like most products over the last, decades now, right? It's sugar and more sugar to get kids to like it. And it just makes it easier, right? And we know now, in terms of like public health crisis, sugar being the most direct, simple, it's just a very simple problem, and also a simple problem to solve is interesting. It's just that sugar is cheap itself, but that sort of desire for sweetness. So for instance, with Kiid Coffee, we use organic monk fruit extract. We don't use a ton of it. So it's still like Kiid Coffee is not overly sweet. It's not a Frappuccino from your favorite coffee shop. But the reality is, especially for kids, is, of course they desire sweet, as we all do. I mean, it kind of triggers right in your brain. That's a scientific study in and of itself. But you take foods, anything. It might be sort of a dessert, right? You start to pare back some of the sugar. You can use some of the sort of sugar substitutes, but not the artificial ones, right? Organic monk fruit extract, stevia is another one that is plant-based, but also not too much of it. And for kids, it's not that they need zero sugar, right? They do need sugar still, like they use that for energy. And so it's not a zero sugar necessarily, but I think overall, if you walk up and down, say for instance, a grocery store, the aisles are loaded with problematic products. Let's just put it that way, especially when you start to look at the age range of 3 to 12 is really our focus. And so, yeah, in terms of expansion, we don't really have any specific right now, but we had some ideas for smoothie. Of course, there's ways to add protein in. We think this, idea, Ethan, his experience every day of like jumping up, getting breakfast, getting out to school, two working parents, right? Where there's just less time, right? And so, we acknowledge the fact that you might not be making pancakes every morning as a parent, right? Like you just don't have the time necessarily. So how do we kind of create innovative solutions and also bring the nutrition back, honestly, to those foods, right? And so there's a million ways that we could do it. We'll probably focus on, Kiid Coffee being a beverage at first, and kind of course, we can add flavors, we can add functionality to beverage. And then, there's plenty of snack, lots of different things. And there's other companies out there that are doing it. But yeah, I mean, we kind of see it as a platform, right, to be able to address more in terms of nutrition, but making it fun still, right? That's as the point of our brand is to be interesting and fun. And that makes it then more compelling for people to actually want to eat it, kids as well, right? As opposed to just like, kind of a boring brand that says they're doing some super healthy thing. That's not fun, in which case then kids, they might not want to actually try it because it's not, cool, right? Or whatever that is. So
yes.
Anyway.
Yeah, they're totally focused on fun. That's
As they should be.
As you were talking there, I was remembering, when in my life the powdered breakfast drink first came out. I don't know if I want to mention the brand or not, but there, I can remember I was fairly young, and there was a powdered packet that you tore open and you put it in water or milk, and it was mostly whey powder and a bunch of sugar, and
No, well, I mean, and we'll say it direct. I mean, it's if you walk into a store, in terms of from an entrepreneurship angle, you don't ever want to like invent something usually, because if you invent something, you have to teach people what it is. They don't understand it, those kind of things. The reality is nutritional beverages have been around for many decades, right? Going back to the 50s, Ovaltine being one of them. Ovaltine
Yes.
still exists in stores. But the problem is those brands haven't evolved with the world, right? So they have a bunch of sugar, some vitamins, and then a bunch of processed ingredients. And the reality is a millennial, like a younger parent now, is not, they're picking up the box and reading, processed alkali with, cocoa with alkali and, 30 ingredients they can't identify. And they put it back down and they go buy a gallon of milk and throw some like raw cocoa powder in there potentially, right? That's the sort of mentality. It's not that extreme always, right? But the truth is the product itself and the product idea is not revolutionary. It's really taking a twist and making it, applicable to, or making it interesting to consumers now, right? That's just the reality. So, there's Carnation Instant Breakfast. There's a lot of different.
That's the one I was thinking of. Yeah. I drank a bunch of that as a kid. Oh.
I had Pop-Tarts, thanks.
Hey, and that's the thing is, we're, as a brand, we also we're not, we don't want to even pretend that we don't enjoy sweets. Like we enjoy those fun things, right? But the truth is, it's in moderation. Like everything, as we try to teach our kids, right? Everything in moderation, including if you were to drink caffeinated coffee. Of course, Kiid Coffee is 99.9% caffeine-free. But we hope that's an educational moment, right? That you can't go drink energy drinks and 10 coffees a day because you will have issues from that. That being said, coffee itself, there's still so much research now to show that overall the benefits significantly outweigh any downsides, even if you do drink a lot of caffeine. But, we think that lesson alone of sort of moderation, caffeine reduction is something that people talk about today. Because, of course, our society, you walk into a grocery store and you see, 100 energy drinks, they're nice, bright blue and purple and all these pretty colors, right? Who do you think they're targeting with those colors? Right. It's certainly not just, everybody that's over the age of 18. So,
and there again, the candy aisle has got all sorts of pretty stuff.
Yeah, when you see the drink section matches the candy aisle, you know that there's something going on there. And these are big questions that, again, we have a lot of audience that reach out via social media and say, this is bad. You can't give kids coffee. And the first question we'll ask is, do you mean coffee or caffeine? And some, will say, oh, right. They kind of stop and it's like, let's talk about this, right? And then it kind of gets to that, well, that's a habit that you're going to develop as an adult. We're like, well, the research shows the habit itself of drinking coffee is definitely not bad for you because across many countries, cultures, coffee is shown to improve many aspects of longevity. So increasing the length of your life, but also reducing things like type 2 diabetes, heart disease, different cancers. There's a tremendous amount of research. So, but then there's still the question of caffeine, right? So that is a substance but that's something we have to teach, right? I mean, and again, same thing back to if you want to enjoy a dessert, that's perfectly fine. You just can't have dessert every night of the week. Or twice a day, right? So.
Exactly, in moderation. And one of the things that I discovered years ago, green tea has caffeine in it, but it also has an ingredient called L-theanine in it, and the Japanese learned to, I think, extract that and then later synthesize it, and now L-theanine and caffeine can be what they call a nootropic. Or nootropic, however they say it, but what the L-theanine seems to do, if I understand it correctly, is it softens that curve, that caffeine curve of the the big jump and then the crash, and extends it out and smooths it out, and so it's something you can manage if you manage it intelligently, but again within moderation.
Yeah, I will have to say we're certainly looking at because you can use water process to decaffeinate coffee as well, and the L-theanine there's quite a bit of research on that now. It's not necessarily there's a lot of new things that come out and you're like, well, what is the real research behind a lot of mushroom drinks now? There's actually very little really substantiated claims made that could be made, and yet you see people saying it's going to make you lose weight and cure everything under the sun. But when you look at things like L-theanine and caffeine, they're actually pretty well studied. I mean, caffeine certainly, like tens of thousands of studies now, across different things for different reasons, right? But even we even have some parents reach out and they're like, well, caffeine, it's used as a treatment for premature babies for brain stimulation, right?
Absolutely.
And then their kids, I don't know if it just becomes a part of their, not necessarily fully caffeinated coffee for the kids once they get to a certain age, but we actually had a mom write us just this. I mean, I almost started crying because her son was born at 26 weeks, which, I mean, how's that even possible, right? That's unbelievable that you can. He's a normal kid now, right? But 26 weeks, right? Like you're thinking.
Yeah.
Anyway, as a parent, it makes you stop and think, "Wow, I'm lucky." But yeah, and then so now coffee, which has been decaf for her son, but it's their special morning routine, right? And so she sees coffee as like something that's literally saved her son's life, or caffeine in the case specifically. But so she takes that very different approach of other parents that think, oh, this is an addictive substance or whatever, something like that. You know what I mean? In terms of if you were to just say the word caffeine, some people would say, substance for stimulation, like energy, right? And other people, in this case, his mom would say something that saved my kid's life.
Yeah, the context is very different.
Exactly, different context. So, yeah.
Yeah, a friend of ours is a neonatal intensive care nurse practitioner. And she talks about that. She said they give it to almost all their babies.
Yeah.
Just to stimulate their heart, kind of stimulate everything, that growth pattern. And, and I did the same thing. I went and looked at her going, what? And she's going, oh no. She said it's kind of one of those miracle things that she said we just take for granted. But she said, when you've got a baby that's this big,
it's a different world.
It's a different world. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that it's funny to even say that because when we start to talk health and wellness, and we have Kiid Coffee has vitamins in it, and there's a lot of discussion about synthetic vitamins and all these different things, natural vitamins, and but coming back to the caffeine is that in most situations, drugs are made, right? Like synthetic, whatever, specifically ADHD treatment, right? So Adderall, other stimulants, which are amphetamines, I guess, in terms of like the core. And so now you have parents that are talking about, well, if they have ADHD, then they potentially drink coffee as a sort of, it's not the same. It doesn't treat it the same way. And there's no research to say it does, but they see it as a kind of a non-pharmaceutical alternative, which I think is interesting. The fact that babies, instead of creating some sort of very expensive, synthetic version, they are literally using nature's own version of it, which is pretty rare because most pharma companies would want to make a patented drug. And yet in this case, it's actually, you take it straight from, it probably is taken straight from coffee or anything else that then they reuse that caffeine. So that's pretty amazing to me, actually.
How did you get to your background? You mentioned product development and engineering. Did you always have an interest in health and wellness, or was that an education that came after because of Ethan?
Always some interest in health and wellness. I should say I've always been, I like to work out, and my wife as well. We just enjoy sort of the athletic, fitness side. And I think kind of with that came food and kind of thinking more about food. But generally, we're actually we like to work out, but that doesn't mean that we go crazy on these food. We're not some crazy dieters or do keto, all these different diets or anything like that. We just kind of have a general regular diet, try to eat more vegetables and those things. So I wouldn't say that I ever specifically, I've always kind of been thinking about health and wellness and those things. But yeah, when you have kids, of course, as you guys know, there's a thing that changes, right? You think, oh, maybe we shouldn't have, pizza this extra night, right? It's comes back to that as a family or as a parent, then you acknowledge it, it's not just your life anymore, right? It's somebody else's, and that you certainly hope, if anything, right, I would say as a parent, you want your kids to be better life than yours. And there's all kinds of things that come with that. But I played football for a long time. I have a messed up knee now that I'm not even 40 and I have what's effectively considered arthritis. And so there's things like that now you think about, okay, maybe, playing football all through high school and into college isn't the best thing if you want your kids to be able to walk when they're, older. And of course, all the things that we've learned about, again, we've talked about it, foods, sports, athletics, right? These different things that I would have definitely made different decisions, I guess I'd say, if I would have known to. But, at the end of the day, it is what it is. So with our children, right, we can do better. So
yes, I second that 100%. I wrestled in high school, and the advice that I was getting, the nutritional and so forth advice that I was getting was awful, and I'm sure it stunted my growth because of what was going on in my body. Trying to lose weight when my body's trying to grow and put on muscle at a crucial age, 13, 14 years old. Our child's pediatrician, when she heard about that, was just horrified.
She was your pediatrician too.
Yeah, she'd been my pediatrician too. And but as a parent, it was like if my kid wanted to wrestle, it was going to be a fight about this, the weight thing. And as it turned out, he got so lucky because he did want to wrestle. But the school, there was something that happened with the school, and they got kicked out of they couldn't compete in the league, so nobody had to worry about making weight. So he could just wrestle and enjoy it without all the negatives, and he had a great time. So, sometimes things work out like that. But I totally get the concern as a parent, and man, I love what you guys are doing. I don't know what question to ask next.
Well, let's go back to the standard of what would you do differently what would you have done a little bit differently, I guess, if you knew what you know now, or knew then what you know now.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I would definitely say, you mean going back to, say, before Ethan broke his legs? Or how far back?
Yeah, how far back were you talking?
No, starting your company, but starting Kiid Coffee.
Kiid Coffee, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Kiid Coffee is in relative terms very new. So,
right.
Ethan is 8. He just turned 8 a month ago, not even a month ago. So we really kicked the company off in right after his birthday, right around his birthday when he turned 7. So in July of 2023 was when Ethan, we already had sort of the product in the sense that Ethan was drinking this drink, and then he told some friends about it, and it was like that. The reaction, as you can imagine, was from a parent point of view, was like, "What are you talking about? Coffee for kids," which in today's world, those in my mind, having built some brands, and now sort of it changes right over time is the way this works. Advertising is very expensive. So you need people to have a reason to talk about your product. If there's no reason, then you better be a celebrity, or you better be an influencer, right? You better have a podcast with millions of viewers or listeners, right? And then you can launch a product, and because you have an audience. But if you don't, then I do think it's important to build these things into the brand, or to build them into a brand. And it just so happened, again, those kind of came together. But if we, I would say early on, that I think we've definitely made some mistakes, right? We've only technically started shipping product about 4 months ago, so in late March. And we've already learned, things like vitamin types and those things, we continue to get better. Like, so you create a product because it's something that it meets like a problem that people have. There's many ways to solve problems, right? So products are kind of like one solution. There's another solution, right? So and I truly believe like customer feedback is everything, right? Your company only exists for your customers. So, once you launch a product, then you actually find out a lot more, because you can't really learn anything from somebody until they pay you for the product. You can't learn anything, because if you go ask your neighbors, is this a good idea? They're gonna be like, well, I don't want to offend them. So yeah, it's a good idea, right? And then you say, well, you pay me for it. And they might be like, oh, no, I don't know if I'll pay you for that, product, right? What is this product or service? So in launching, we've learned a lot already. Things like I mentioned vitamin types, and like certain vitamins, whether they're considered natural or like synthetically made. There's lots of questions that moms have now about, for instance, flavoring, natural flavors, vanilla extracts, right? These different things you use in food, which interestingly, there's not a lot of completely true information to share. Like on the internet, there's a lot of halfway true information, but it's very false in a lot of ways. And unfortunately, you can't fight all that, right? So there's things that you need to improve in the product. We use organic, natural flavors of vanilla and caramel. If you look specifically at that, the European Union has much more strict controls on what that means. In the United States, organic, natural flavors has a pretty strict control, but natural flavors means that there's a lot of different chemicals being added in there to make a flavor. So that's one example of, we've already started to take the product and say, okay, we're going to use European Union certified, which limits the amount of ingredients, right, because the European Union has a much more strict view on what you should eat, right, in terms of chemicals and processing aids and all these different things. So simple things like that we constantly, take feedback, and I would say we're trying to improve and learn, because, you're never going to know all these things up front until, again, who is the person that buys, and then what do they tell you about the product, including for us, simple things as well. Some parents just want coffee, decaffeinated coffee with like no extra sort of benefits, right? They're just looking for that taste and bring the cost down. So those things like that we never really thought about. We just kind of, you started with whatever you think you want or the customer wants. And then, as you go along, you have to take that feedback and incorporate it into your company and your product, everything. So.
Wow. So there's a possibility of maybe an adult spin-off there for, just the decaf coffee. Wow. Kids.
I mean, how weird is it that decaf has been around for, forever, but it's like less than 10% market share in the US. In the rest of the world that drinks more coffee, it's a higher percentage market share. But the US has kind of just become caffeine focused. But the reality is, as people either get older, they can't drink caffeine past, say, noon, because it'll affect their sleep. So we kind of see, interestingly, there is, I think, a big opportunity in the market alone of, again, awareness on caffeine, awareness on water processed decaffeination, because the other version, methylene chloride, is a industrial processing chemical that there's a lot of research now coming out, or people talking about the fact that traditional decaf is not necessarily the best idea. For instance, just water processed decaffeination removes even more caffeine, and again, with no chemicals. So, what if that became 3%? What if it increased by 1 percentage point of the share? Well, if you look at the US, is it 450 million cups of coffee a day are consumed in the US?
1% is a pretty good chunk of that.
Imagine if you just incrementally moved it 1%. That's a lot of water processed decaffeinated coffee that's going to be sold, which represents, to me, of course, you look at it as like that could be a large market opportunity. And we do have moms that actually are moms and dads, and multiple people have commented like, I'm not buying this for kids. This is for me. So.
Smart.
Oh, this is awesome. This is like a masterclass in marketing and product development and branding and some of the questions that you've brought up about making it fun. And you kind of touched on story, but there's this story here too. And I remember we watched a lot of episodes of The Prophet, and one of the things he pushed, Marcus Lemonis, I think is his name, and it was the story matters to people. People relate to a story and they want to buy because of that story. And you were talking about that as far as creating that brand loyalty and the place in the crowded marketplace. I'm excited for people to see this. Listen,
I think if you actually look right now, there's some really successful companies, and the trick is they put it all online, all on the internet, which of course a lot of families would be like, let's not do that. But you see reality TV kind of do this, is like put the family on the internet. They can do it. I mean, look at the Kardashians, they have like a $20 billion business behind, but it's only because, again, they became celebrities from effectively putting their family on the internet. But to take that back to like a more simple level, people do want to buy from people. I think that's more true today than it was in the past, where the big companies could be kind of like the people behind the curtain. And now, of course, with social media and these, a lot of different changes in the way that people consume media and where they learn about products, I do think telling a story is more important than ever. So then the question is, what's interesting as a story? You could have a auto repair shop, but to do funny videos where it's like, this is what we learned today. This is how you run a garage. This is how you run an automotive repair shop. and adding a little bit of like drama in there potentially. I'm not saying we're going to do any drama type stuff, but if you look right now, brands are as much, small brands that are growing quickly are as much about producing media that's interesting as they are like selling a product. And if they focus, actually what they're finding is that they're focusing on the media side, the product sells itself because people feel they can relate to who they are, why they would want to buy this product, all these different things. And they don't feel like it's an ad, right? They feel like I'm buying from this person. It just so happens that I also need whatever this product is, right? It could be anything. Of course, you need to get your car fixed. So who do you pick? Do you pick the guy that you don't know or the guy that you see on social media that you think is funny? So there's just, those kind of things that I feel like every company, it doesn't matter if you're a cookie shop, a bakery, or last thing is reviews. People now shop based on opinions that are shared, not on like Amazon reviews. Everybody knows that, right? Like what star rating is this product? But Google search, but TikTok, Instagram, Facebook have now become places that people check, like what are the results of this company? Like if it's a home renovation company, they're going to look there. Like they might look at Google reviews and Yelp, but they also might look at your social media or these other pages. So it is an interesting world that we're in, and something that I think every company, it doesn't matter what you do, needs to keep in mind. And putting a face to a business in today's world is very, invaluable, I'd say. I mean, so you just have to decide, it doesn't have to be your face, it could be somebody else's face, but there needs to be like a face associated with it. So.
Right. And small businesses are the backbone of America. If you look at the amount of small family businesses that are in America alone, it's overwhelming. And we don't give a lot of kudos to those families. And that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, despite the hard work. I mean, we have some coffee shops, independent, right? So not Starbucks, not Dunkin'.
Right.
But, man, the owners, we can barely talk to them usually because they're so busy. Like they're, buying all the inventory and trying to manage social media and do all these different things. And, I mean, it's, from our point of view, we're just like, how can we help then? Because I know you're busy. Of course, we want to sell our product, but like at the end of the day, you and I are similar, like in the sense that you're running a business, I'm running a business, and we only have so much time in a day. So
exactly.
And let's support each other and help each other get through this. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, David, for spending this time with us and telling us your story and for bringing Ethan on.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
Like I said, I'm excited to taste Kiid Coffee for myself and to share this episode.
Can you tell us where to get it now?
John, as of right now, we're only on our website. We will launch on Amazon soon, and the main reason is that it's cheaper to ship products that way. It's just expensive to ship products from your own warehouse. Amazon has a lower cost structure, but we'll have it in both places. Our website, Kiid, Kiid, so kiidcoffee.com altogether, and that's the easiest place to find more information.
Right. All right.
And we'll have all this information on our show notes later.
Exactly.
So.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
This was so fun. Thank you so much for sharing your story and your kid with us.
And we invite our audience to try Kiid Coffee.
Yes.